we have success, right? And so my leadership style, I don't do that. I think often, for example, of the realtor who's really, really good at marketing and getting the deal done and bad at paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
Why take that realtor and make them waste hours of their day doing paperwork when that's not what they're good at, right? And so my management style is that way. So what you've done is you found a way to work around your problem.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Instead of just working on the problem, you're like, okay, I know that maybe I'll have a tendency to get busy and procrastinate.
Yep.
I know that about myself. So let's find a workaround. That's so smart.
Well, I mean, it was because I this is not the kind of thing that unless I'm doing this with someone else, like I don't have anyone else to like hold me accountable to this project.
Well, so you've got two methods to do that,
right?
Right.
Now I
You
have
that live commitment you have to be, and then you have the person who's going to show up.
Exactly.
And so you hacked your way.
Yeah. If you could say like the life hack, right?
Do we need to do anything else here?
No, that's it. I just want to figure you were saying something really good, so I was like, let me just capture that really quickly. So we're gonna go ahead and get started a few minutes early. So this is the Ortiz Anomaly podcast. My name is Gus Ortiz. Appreciate you guys watching. I'm here with Merideth Nagel from the Legacy Legal Team.
Yeah, I know. Yes.
Okay, and we're just gonna chat it up. She's the local attorney in town. If you guys have any questions about law, like she's really the person I go to and ask questions about. So really quickly about your business.
Yes.
So I have all kinds of questions about your business, and I don't want to take it up just asking you all of the history because I have some stuff today to talk to you about too.
Yeah.
But I do want to know like because you are you're a very captivating personality.
Oh, that's a nice
and it's interesting to see that because a lot of times when you think of an attorney, you don't necessarily think about that. Like usually typically it's more of a dry type of a personality type and stuff like that. That's pretty more common place for attorneys, but you're not that. You're very like, you have a spark about you. You're very charismatic. Wow. What made you think about getting into law?
Right. So I was 10 years old. And my uncle was an attorney.
Okay.
And my mom was a working mom who couldn't afford childcare. So luckily for me and my mom, my school bus let off right by my uncle's office.
Oh, cool.
So her free childcare was to send me to her brother's office every day.
Funny.
And I would do things like empty trash, little things.
Yeah.
I was a little girl.
Yeah.
But what I watched every day for those maybe 3 years that went on is the people that would come in his office and the difference he could make.
Interesting.
People coming in with their shoulders down, frightened, scared. And he'd talk to them for a couple hours, help them solve their problem or get on the road to solving their problem.
Yeah.
And I thought, I want to be a part of being solution for people. That was very important to me. I had no concept of what a job like that paid.
Right.
It was not a prestige thing. I was too young. I just saw him as somebody that was able to have a positive impact on people's lives. And I thought, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And it stuck.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, in the way that life works, when I was in college, I also got very interested in special needs children. So when I applied to law school, I also applied to Rollins College to get a master's in special education. Talk about a potentially different.
Oh, yeah. Different world. Yeah.
Both having that same theme of service, though, in my heart, the way I was thinking about doing the job. And I was at a Chinese restaurant and got a fortune cookie that said you would make a great lawyer. Now, who's ever seen a fortune cookie that says something like that?
That's weird.
Right?
That
Not like, you can expect good things next week, but you would be a good lawyer or even maybe a great lawyer.
Oh, that's so funny.
And I thought, why do I feel like I need to make myself do this special ed thing?
Yeah.
Law's what I want. Law's always what I want.
That's so interesting. What are the chances?
None.
Wow.
And I've never seen anything like it again, Gus.
Wow.
I'm a person of faith, so I ascribe it to that. God talked to me in a fortune cookie.
That's amazing.
Changed the course of my life.
Oh, that's so crazy.
And I've been able to help thousands of people.
That's so
since
awesome.
That time.
You know what's
Literally
interesting?
thousands.
So, attorneys run into the same challenges that real estate agents and brokers run into as it relates to trust, right?
Absolutely.
So, like,
except you guys have it worse.
I mean, I guess that could be argued. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fair.
and I'm going to tell you that I'm going to argue that from a actual perspective. So I tried to sell real estate for a couple of years with my mother. I got a license, which I needed, and my mom was a broker. And at the time, I was learning to be a broker, and I thought, okay, well, to be a broker, I need to actually know what they're facing in the day to day, because it's different being a broker than being an agent.
Absolutely.
I could not believe it, because I had entered into people's life with an expectation that they were going to find me helpful and useful. And I was really shocked at how unprofessionally realtors are often treated by customers, how customers don't realize that you actually have the same goals. So I would say you've got it tougher than I do.
Okay. I'll take that.
It's a much tougher profession. I always say to my realtor clients, I don't have the guts to be a realtor. It's a much tougher profession than being a lawyer.
Well, I mean, how do you, that being the case, attorneys do face a lot of that as well. Like, as a business professional, like, what kinds of things do you do to help to thwart sort of preconceived notions of like what an attorney does? And because a lot of times people they're just mistrusting. They think that attorneys, just like they do think with realtors, they're just in it for the money, and it's just, and and there's not really an understanding of like what exactly each of our professions do. So what kinds of things do you do to help counter that sort of instinctual, I guess direction that some people will go into as it relates to like sort of building trust?
Right. So I think the first thing, a successful law firm is the same as a successful real estate firm. And that is, it's all based on relationships at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So it became obvious to me kind of early in my career that people were nervous about going to a lawyer's office.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
So when you enter my office, it's very thoughtful. Like, I have a cross, a very subtly placed cross at the entrance to my vestibule. When you walk in my office, we have a daily blackboard that has inspirational quotes.
Oh, that's cool.
We created a slideshow basically that plays on this big TV behind our right behind our reception area that shows, it doesn't just show the things you would expect from a law firm, like, the nice quotes and lawyer pictures. It shows pictures of us doing fun things. It shows pictures of us being a community together.
Gotcha.
So that's all thoughtful and that's all intentional. The people that answer the phone, it's all from the beginning to make you understand that we're here to be a part of your life in a positive way.
That's awesome.
The Kool-Aid that we drink is as follows. And we drink this Kool-Aid in the title company, and we drink this Kool-Aid in the law firm.
Yeah.
We have a unique opportunity to be a part of people's lives at a time for them that is either very scary, very exciting. At a minimum, it's nerve-wracking.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Whether you're buying your first house, you're excited, you're scared, your deal's falling apart, your marriage is falling apart, you're scared, your business is falling apart. We can enter that space and understand, we believe that that's where we're called to add value in those unique relationships.
Yeah.
We are a community law firm, so our value, our intrinsic value, first value is community relationship. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So it's just an intentional thing that we preach amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
And we intentionally try to show that from the very first moment that you interact with us. And then throughout the engagement, which is what you call it when you work with a lawyer, it's an engagement.
Nice.
Fancy. We try to put in touches like that. We're very approachable people.
Yeah.
I'm very much myself. I place no value on this. Oh, I'm the lawyer and I know everything. That's baloney.
Yeah.
Most of my clients are much smarter than I am at every single thing that they're involved with.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's
you stay kind of in your lane of like, this is the thing that I'm familiar with, and this is where I'm gonna be able to bring value.
Right.
Yeah,
and people, a lot of lawyers, I hate to say this, and you've probably had this experience. I feel like a lot of lawyers just spending time trying to demonstrate that they're smart. Raising problems just to show they can defeat them. I don't know. It's very frustrating.
I see that with a lot of service-based business in general. Like, because I definitely see that with realtors do that all the time, right? They try to, and sometimes that gets them into trouble because we're not attorneys. So there's certain things that if we start talking in certain ways, that can really get us in trouble. And then, I do see that in general with a lot of service-based businesses, whether they're people in insurance or in finance or whatever the case may be, where people just have a tendency to want to sound smart. Right. And that they're not, their goal is not necessarily to help the person that's sitting across from them. They just want to showcase how amazing they are. So I appreciate that approach that you have. Now, when you, because, there are, just like in real estate, people can build teams, people can work solo. Like, what made you decide to build out a team? Because you have a whole team that's available to you. So it's not only the expertise that you bring to the table, you have a whole team of other attorneys that are also bringing stuff to the table, which is, I'm assuming it has expanded your scope of what you guys can do as attorneys.
Absolutely. And we have, when I started out, I worked at a big white stocking law firm.
Okay.
And I had my clients were McDonald's and Boston Market.
Oh, wow.
And I flew around on private jets, and it was all this fancy stuff. And it was a wonderful way to practice law in terms of what I learned, the opportunities, the challenges, but it wasn't, you weren't dealing, you didn't feel like you were making a difference in a person's life.
Gotcha.
Right?
You were working with corporations.
Right.
I gotcha.
Right. And, that was great. And it was lucrative, certainly. But, it wasn't what that wasn't what that 10-year-old girl wanted.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's when I said, I'm going to find that in my own practice. So I started my own practice, and it was me and one woman who still works for me.
That's awesome.
20 years. This is our 20th anniversary.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And so, yes, we have definitely expanded. I have more attorneys, which means we can offer more practice areas. We do everything now at our firm except for criminal and tax.
Okay.
And I will be honest with you, I'm 56 this year. And when I was in my 30s and my 40s and maybe even my early 50s, my growth was a lot of the reason people want to grow. I believe that I have a great service. I believe that my team is exceptional at what they do.
Yeah.
And I just want to provide that service to more people.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Simple.
But something has shifted a little bit as I'm aging. And what I'm finding now is great joy in mentoring younger lawyers. So,
interesting.
In a confluence of circumstances, all the lawyers who work with me right now are females.
Okay.
And
just by chance.
Yes. And they're all younger than me. They're in their 30s and early 40s. And I'm finding great joy in walking through life with these women because I really believe this is a wonderful career for women.
Sure. Yeah.
And helping them figure out how to be a mom and a wife and a
kind of
daughter.
Balance it all. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm finding great joy. And so, there's a new hire that we're considering right now.
Yeah.
And actually, I was more excited by how I think I can help her in her life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm finding a lot of joy
That's
there.
interesting that you say that because I felt a little bit of that myself, which is why I kind of I jumped into a coaching role here in our market center because I kind of got to a point where I was like, I don't know that I want to necessarily grow anymore. Like, I mean, not that I don't want to grow. I guess that's not my main focus anymore. It was just the ability to share what I know with others and help them to kind of build a business out of this thing that has really been awesome for me.
And that's exactly how I feel. Now you're close in age to me, right? How old are you guys?
I'm 48 or 9.
Okay, so I'm 56.
Okay,
so it's good that impulse. I think you're going to find it more and more because you look around life and you're just so damn grateful.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You're just so grateful, and you think about everything you went through and everything you've learned, and you just have an impulse to want to help and give that knowledge to somebody else.
Right.
And you think about the people that poured into your life too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like that's been impactful in the way that I live my life today.
Yeah, and the videos that I see you post, your teachings that you give, they're excellent and they're always right on point. And I'm, as a lawyer, I'm like, yes,
Thank you.
yes, thank you. Get
Okay.
that education out. And, it's funny. You seem very joyful and very yourself in those moments.
I really enjoy doing that stuff.
I can tell.
It's really cool for me to be able to just share, just share what I know. And it's not that I know so much. It's just like I happen to know more than the person sitting in the room.
Right.
And if I can share what I know to the person sitting, and that makes an impact on that person, that's awesome.
Isn't that the best feeling
It
when you
is.
see
It's
their
really
eyes
cool.
light up and they're like, oh, wait, really?
Yeah,
That
you
is
can do
the
that. Yeah,
best
yeah.
feeling.
It is cool.
It
is
is
really
cool.
neat. Yeah. So I want to kind of get into more of what it is that you do as a practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the things that I know that you deal a lot in family law, right? Is that your primary, or what is your primary
No.
business?
Well, okay. So at the firm, yes, we have lawyers that do family law.
Okay.
I am not a lawyer who does that anymore.
Okay.
I think what you might be thinking of is I do some guardianship work for the
Oh, okay.
elderly who
Maybe that's
have
what it
been
was. Okay.
exploited and abused.
Okay.
That's a good, nice clip of my practice.
Okay.
We do a lot of real estate.
That I know, yes.
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean,
You guys do most of our transactions.
Yeah, and that kind of shows up in two ways, right? It
Mhm.
shows up in a title company in terms of regular title transactions, but then we do a bunch of sophisticated real estate development,
Mhm.
large sales,
Yeah.
commercial, residential, all of that.
Gotcha.
And I love it, love it,
Yeah,
love it. But I will be honest, for me on the day-to-day is mostly interfacing with a few of the largest clients that still need me.
Mm-hmm.
And then mostly just training and supervising the younger lawyers who are doing the day-to-day work. And then all of the things that I have to do in the management administration of the law firm and the title company.
So as a CEO, you're
much more CEO than a practicing lawyer now.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay. And what have you liked more?
I definitely like the CEO role
Interesting.
more.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So you like working with the people that are working out in the field?
Yeah, I like working on my business more than in my business.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is I love making the relationships with clients that I then have practitioners that work the work and I do the relationship part.
I see.
The idea part, those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's
are
awesome.
very interesting to me now at my career.
So this is interesting to me because we talk a lot about, and then this is a entrepreneurial thing, right? Working in your business versus working on your business.
And that's where a lot of lawyers never find growth. They never learn to transition from working. They stay tied to their keyboard, practicing.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're comfortable with.
Yeah, and I mean that we see that in real estate too, right? Like, and agents don't want to get away from being in the business, and because they're worried that if I get away from this, which is what got me here, I'm going to lose everything and no one can do it as good as I can. And you kind of run into that whole mindset, and you have to figure out a way. Like one of the things that I talk about in coaching that I learned from others is that understanding the power of leverage in your business will completely change the way that you work. It just changes the way that you even think about all the things that you do on a daily basis. So at what point did you realize I'm doing too much work. I need to leverage out. What was it that kind of got you to understand that?
Yeah, so I wish that I could tell you that I've sat down and came up with a plan and realized it and all of that. I think really what happened is it happened organically. I think what I did that was right was I took the same entrepreneurial impulse that made me the practitioner, right? Made me become the lawyer with my own business, the realtor who has their own business.
Yeah.
I took that same courage and I thought, okay, it's mere economics. I can only do so much with my time.
It's only so many hours in a day.
Has so many hours of the day to list, show property, write contracts.
Yeah.
So there is an absolute cap to not only the amount of money they can make, but the impressions, the relationships, the influence, all of it.
Yeah.
And so it occurred to me, wait, there's no stopping what I can do if I will be willing to leverage.
Mm.
And it's scary.
Oh, it's totally scary.
Oh my gosh. I can remember like working in my business all day long
Mm-hmm.
and then working till midnight at night doing my books because I didn't even want anyone to help me with my books.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think once you can find the courage to flip that switch, that's when you find real growth. And that's where you find a lot more joy. Now, here's the thing. Some people are perfectly happy being practitioners.
Oh yeah, no,
and
absolutely.
they need to be given permission to do that. That's wonderful,
Right.
I mean, I have many happy colleagues. It's just them and a woman and
Yeah,
a man that
and
answers
that-
the phone, and
and
they
that's
love
fine.
their
Yeah,
life,
and that's
right? So I'm
awesome.
not saying everybody has to live my life,
Sure.
but for those that have an entrepreneurial bent, I really believe that decision to leverage was the pivotal one. And
Yeah,
it was hard. It was as hard as the decision to start my own business.
Now it's funny because like it kind of is kind of the way that happened with me as well, in that necessity was what put me in a position that leverage was the only way that I'd be able to like proceed. Like I got to a point where I was so busy, I was like, I can't keep up. Like it's starting to impact my family relationships and stuff like that. So I was just like, I just need help. And I decided like in real estate, you know, I had the ability, you know, there's all kinds of ways to leverage in real estate. And the thing that really Brandy, you know, Brandy, she recommended, like, well, why don't you get a showing assistant or showing specialist? And I was like, oh, okay. I don't know what that means. I don't know, like, what'll happen. Would I lose my client?
How's that possible?
Yeah. So she was just like, just do it. And I trusted her, and I still trust her implicitly. So I was like, okay. So I talked to one of the other team members on the team. She was willing to do it. And I was like, I don't know how this is going to work. Let's do one or two. Let's see how it feels, you know. And she happened to be amazing. So she went out there and she just literally, she went to show some property. And and the only thing I remember, this is what I remember. We scheduled, you know, her to go out and go see property. And then I got a phone call a couple hours later. Hey, so they want to write an offer. And I was just like, wait a minute, what? And then I was like, okay. And so we wrote an offer, a deal done. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. And then I sent her out on another one, and she's like, a couple hours later, hey, they want to write an offer. I'm like, what is going on? So I was like, she's better than I am. And I thought I was like I thought I was the golden child at the time, you know? So I was like, oh, I am doing this all wrong. So I just would lean into that. And I just been like, ever since, I'm looking every opportunity I see for leverage, I take it. I'm like,
well, and you know, you hit the nail on the head, because when we try to hold everything into ourselves, we don't give others an opportunity to shine.
Oh, yeah.
And if you've got the right people in your life, you know, it's a hard thing to do.
It is, Sam.
The more that you push down to them, they will rise to the occasion.
Yeah. And it's cool to see that.
Oh,
it's so amazing. Like when you're like, maybe this person could do something, you see potential and you're like, here, see what you could do with that. And then you see them like, and you're like, what? Okay. This person is a rock star.
And then the most gratifying moment is when they think of something you didn't think of.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're like, whoa, then your mind is really blown because you've got another example of the power of people together.
Oh,
right?
for sure.
Yeah, leveraging it is scary.
It is scary.
Because people think, oh, you know, I'm going to have to pay someone hourly.
Yeah.
I've got this opportunity. I can tell you almost without exception in my whole life, if you build it, they will come.
Oh, yeah.
It just, the law of the universe works that way. I don't know why. I don't know how. I just know it does.
I mean, I would say the only caveat to that is you have to, whenever you do decide to leverage, you have to be very meticulous about who you decide to put into that chair.
And that's what I said. If you have the right people, see, that's the key to all of it. Is having the right people. And the right people are not always the most with the best resume.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And some people with a really good resume
are the wrong people.
Yeah.
Right.
So I do think that there is definitely leverage is a really powerful tool, and I think it's a necessary tool in an entrepreneur's like toolbox. Without that, they just have a job.
And I wish that I were better at that. So
Mm.
when I think of somebody like, let's say Dan Newland as an example,
Mhm.
he's a lawyer who's about my age.
Yeah.
He worked at John Morgan, was successful there, went off and started his own firm. And he's got hundreds of lawyers who work for him.
Right.
I think what those guys and gals are able to do is they just are even better than we are at spotting and cultivating talent. Right? It's never a problem of getting the business if
Right.
you have the right people.
Yeah.
It's always a problem of getting the right people.
Yeah.
That I don't care what your job is.
Absolutely.
Right? Whether you're a lawyer,
Yeah.
realtor, whatever.
It's
the people that matter.
It does. And that's really I think the most critical part, because one of the things, because as you know, I'm with Brandy on her team. I handle all commercial stuff, but one of the things that really that stands out for me working on her team is she is really good at identifying talent. Like, she's really good at it. And now she's at a point where she doesn't necessarily want to expand her growth. She's like allowing life to kind of happen, and she's growing as life permits. So, but the people that she puts on the team, like everyone on our team, I mean, I super impressive. Oh my God. Like,
you guys are all impressive.
Everyone is like, just wow. Like, the fact that I'm on this team, I'm like, okay, I don't know if I should be sitting in this chair, because it's there. I mean, everyone on the team is just so like knowledgeable, and they care, and they work hard, and they play hard, and they're just like really impressive personalities.
Well, and I think another thing that she did in team building that was smart is all of you are different. You think you have core similarities, right? Your ethic, your care for people, your care for quality of your work.
Yeah.
But you have different personality styles, different ways of interacting with customers, different ways of approaching your work, and all of those seem to be honored and respected. And that kind of dovetails into something that we were talking about earlier, which is, instead of helping people fit into a mold that you think they should be in, I think the best thing to help someone do is find how to succeed in their own mold.
Yeah.
And I think she's done that very successfully.
She has.
With you guys.
She's been great. So I'm very honored to be on her team.
That's a big mistake that leaders make. They think, okay, I am a certain way. I am successful as the leader. I set the culture. So what I will do is make sure I find a whole bunch of people like myself. Well, that is the biggest mistake you can make in developing a culture and developing a team. And a system.
Right.
Yeah, I look for people that have complementary and challenging skills to mine. That makes sense. Me better.
Yeah, because it fills the gaps, right? It helps to fill the gaps. Like, hey, I'm really great at this, but no one's great at everything.
No.
So like the gaps are where like you can find someone else to help be great at that. Like, it's the leaning, the whole concept of leaning into your strengths.
Exactly.
Right. So like it allows you to really lean into your strengths, and in the parts where you're not as strong, you can have someone else can fill that, and they can lean into those elements. So I totally get that.
When I was a younger woman, in the 80s, there seemed to be this big press to make sure that each member of your team had these kind of minimal core competencies that were established as this is the way it should be done, right? And I think now we're kind of understanding that people perform best and are happiest when you find ways that they can build on who they already are. So, for example, as you mentioned, I have maybe a more outgoing or ebullient personality than a lot of lawyers. Well, guess what? Not everybody likes my personality.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
To some people, I'm very overwhelming and scary, and like, oh, that woman's loud and
right? Yeah.
So I have people on my team that have a whole different energy.
Yeah, different demeanor. Right.
And then they are able to step into those spots where people need that energy and that demeanor.
I totally get it.
And it builds the whole team. And so I would say anybody who's starting a business, do not make the mistake of just trying to find a whole bunch of people that are doing exactly like you are.
Right.
It won't work.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that.
But it's easy to do because that's what you know. That's what you
value. It's what's familiar.
Right.
Yeah. I totally see that. And it's even in real estate, the how do I want to say this? The expectation that most people have is that it's outgoing people, like outgoing extroverts.
Not always.
I know, but the But a lot of people make the assumption that it's extroverts that are the ones that are the highest
And
performers.
boy, is that a mistake.
Yes.
Speaking of Brandy, and I don't be speaking about her behind her back, but she's a very introverted person.
Oh yeah. Well, you're not speaking behind her back. She could totally see this. Hey, Brandy.
She is by nature very calm.
Oh yeah.
Deliberate. Yeah. This is how she approaches things. Right now, so if someone were like me and building a team and not understanding the value of having different personality types, you could miss out on someone who is a huge success.
And she is she's a powerful business owner.
But she does it by being herself.
Yes.
To our point.
Yes.
She plays on her own strengths.
Yeah, absolutely.
She doesn't try to become something that she thinks she should be.
Right.
She plays where she's strong.
Right.
And I just feel like all of us in life in general spend way too much time mad at ourselves for the things that we're not doing rather than really appreciating and capitalizing on the things that we know that we do.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I definitely think that there is there's an intention sometimes for people to behave in a way they think is right as opposed to just being themselves.
Amen.
Yeah.
And the older you get, the more you realize being yourself is the only way to go.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I wonder if part of that is you stop caring. You know what I'm saying? You stop caring about what other people.
You do.
You're like, I don't.
And not in a bad way.
No, in a good way. You just stop caring about what other people's how other people see you. You just stop. You know what? I am the way I am. I know my intentions. Right. I know what I'm trying to do, how I'm trying to help, and if someone can't see that, I mean, there's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
I can't affect the way you think. I have to just do what I think is right in the way that I think is going to be the way that I am, right? And the way that I do things. So I think at some point you just I think eventually as we age, I think we just I stopped caring so much about what people think, because when I was younger, I really cared a lot about what people thought.
Me too. That's all I cared about. My whole sense of myself was other people. And then you get older and you realize, first of all, people are not thinking about you all that much.
Right. Exactly.
They're all thinking about themselves.
Of course.
Right. And the same stuff you're doing in your brain. So you learn, first of all, people do not think about you nearly as much as
you're not that important, right?
No, you're not. And you need to give yourself permission to not be everything to everybody.
Yeah.
I heard a statistic once, I don't know if it's true, that 10% of people are just not going to like you.
Yeah, and I mean, it could be more.
That number thrown around.
I mean, it could be more. It all depends on the I think there are certain personality types, because I mean, I think different personality types will probably be more susceptible to friendships and connections than others, right?
True.
Just because of the personality types and the way that people engage, right? Mm-hmm. Someone who happens to be a little bit more of a serious curmudgeon type of person is probably going to have less people that are going to enjoy being around them, right? And then you have other people that are much more vibrant and much more, exactly, quote unquote fun. Mm-hmm. They just connect with people. They're going to be able to connect with more people, right? Mm-hmm. It's not to say that one is good or one is bad. It's just that is the nature of personality types, right? That's what makes each of us different. So you just gotta, sort of I guess, love yourself enough to just be yourself. Right?
And that's hard. That's a lifelong journey.
Of course it is. That's always,
And almost everything that someone thinks about you, when you get older, you realize almost everything that someone thinks about you is actually about them.
Interesting. That's an interesting.
It's actually their own.
They're projecting.
They're projecting because they don't really. I mean, how many people really know us?
Yeah,
yet can form very firm opinions.
That's true.
And they're mostly about them and not about us.
Interesting.
Yeah. So as you get older, you kind of realize these things, and you're like, well, shoot. I'm not going to waste so much time on it anymore. Right. Yeah, you're right. You don't, and it's not like a forget you. It's not like I don't care what you think in a mean way.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not like, it's more like
it's just indifference.
It's do you.
Yeah, it's more indifference, I would say. It's not that I don't care. It's just I'm indifferent about.
You do you.
Yeah.
And let them, as Mel Robbins famously says. Just let them do what they're doing. Yeah.
So, okay, I want to switch gears a little bit because this is a great conversation. I'm loving this. So there's a lot of stuff happening in the economy, and I'm interested to hear from an attorney's perspective. What are you seeing? What do you feel is important to you to pay attention to? And I'm interested to just in general, and then we can kind of delve into a direction from there. Like how do you feel about the economy right now and what's going on? And but whatever your political affiliations are, it doesn't matter to me. But I'm just saying.
Right. I was fortunate enough to make it through the Great Recession. We all in the real estate industry, if we were around long enough, we saw what it was like, how it felt.
Sure.
That was a really great experience because it really kind of toughened me up, I think. And I think it kind of reset a lot of expectations about people here locally. And I think the problem that people have is you cannot listen to CNN and make a conclusion about what's happening in Lake County.
Oh, fair.
It just does not work.
Yeah, it doesn't translate.
It does not. You're hearing real estate statistics that are across the entire country.
Right, it's like a homogeny.
Or these markets that are completely irrelevant to us, right?
Yeah.
So
they're focused on the stuff that's like crazy.
Of course, right? So the first thing that I think I learned then, and I still have now, is when I'm thinking about what's happening in our economy, I'm thinking about what am I seeing happening on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? CNN or Fox or whomever you listen to is telling you is happening with the economy. So here's what I've experienced as a lawyer who has I think a unique ability to see into small business, which really runs. Most of my clients are small business clients. So here's what I've seen. The cost of goods has been really bad. Yeah. And it has impacted people in a profound way. And even in our area, which has been, I would say, more insulated than the rest of the country. Yeah. We've certainly seen a lot less growth. I have had a lot of clients who have not been able to afford the expansion because building materials are so high or labor costs are so high. I have seen the cost of things cause people to make decisions that are limiting their life and limiting their business and the reach. And that's always distressing, right? So that is happening locally. For sure. Just like it's happening nationally. We're seeing that here
from the real estate side too, yeah.
And in the real estate market, I don't know about for you, but our December on the closing side was one of the worst months we've had in like since the worst of the times. And I think that was probably a function of the election and people not knowing what's happening. Yeah. I will tell you that from my side, I feel like a lot of our constituency here, whatever your political leanings are, it doesn't really matter when we're in business, where we deal with our reality. Sure. And our reality here is most of our constituency is highly conservative. Most of them were very energized by the Trump victory and are feeling very optimistic without a lot of real hard data to feel that way. Yeah. Right. Like, the
it's
gas.
It's just a personal feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
The gas didn't go down to $1.92 on January 22nd. Right. Yeah. But people that in our area, I feel like that has encouraged people. People feel very encouraged by the choice.
We're hearing that on our side. Yeah. We're
from an economic perspective. Yeah. And I'm not talking about how my women friends feel and some of my friends of color.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's another discussion.
Sure.
But sticking strictly to economy, I think that it has made a difference in our area, not necessarily in a concrete way yet, but just in a perception way.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that.
A lot of my small business owners that last year were afraid to make some moves are now thinking that this year will be a good year to do it.
Interesting.
Without any real change in data.
Yeah.
But that is a change in their perspective about what their opportunities are.
Right. Just confidence in general is higher.
Yes, I will say that it is. Let's hope that it holds. Let's hope that the data is going to support that. So I am seeing more confidence. I'm seeing, it's interesting from my real estate business. I kind of see it a little differently than you guys do in the sales side, right? Because I see people farther back in the planning side. And some of our builders that looked to you guys like they were, they're building, they were a little more hesitant at certain times last year when it came to relocating and developing new projects, but they moved ahead and they continued ahead. And again, I think some of those big companies are also feeling better, more optimistic, again, without a lot of data yet.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that was noticeable, at least from the development side, is, there's a lot less spec being built. They're sort of waiting for we have someone who's interested in wanting to purchase a home, whatever, and then now they're going to go ahead and build that out. So not to say they're not building spec, they're doing less of that. and waiting for buyers to come in and actually buy property. There were a couple of factors that I think have an impact in. To your point earlier, you said that we're a little sheltered here in Central Florida, and I think there's a number of reasons for that. And it seems like there are a couple factors that have the potential to really keep Central Florida in particular, regardless of what happens with the rest of the economy, unless it's like catastrophic, has the potential to keep Central Florida moving in a positive direction economically. And some of those factors include, obviously, there's Disney, Universal, those kinds of things. That's never going to go away. But we continue to be one of the top locations for retirees, and baby boomers there's probably like 2, maybe even 3 more phases of baby boomers.
Yeah, and let me ask you a question there. Let me answer a question. The Villages has been expanding. Do you think the Villages is strong enough that they will be able, we're all kind of riding on their coattails? Do you know what I mean when I say that? Or do they just symbolize what people already like about the area? Do you understand my question?
I don't know that I understand your question.
My question is the Villages in and of itself as an entity, as a business entity, which is now grown into this huge town, and now they're gobbling up more land everywhere. Sure. Do you think that the Villages has the potential to be something that could insulate the whole area?
I don't think so, not on its own. There's a couple problems that I have with the Villages that I think we won't come to fruition until probably we get into like closer to 2035. Right.
Are you thinking about bond issues? Or are you thinking about
no,
resale issues?
I think because you have to remember that, the core focus of the Villages is that, that baby boomer growth that's happening. Well, that baby boomer has an end, right? There's that baby boomer, all the baby boomers are all retiring, but eventually they're going to start
dying.
Yeah. They're going to start passing. They're going to go to nursing homes, right? And then what are you going to do with all of those homes? Like, you're going to have to change from a zoning perspective. You're going to have to change what is permissible to sell. And then you're also going to have behind the baby boomers, there's not necessarily the same volume of people that are coming behind them.
And do you wonder if the people are different? Is the next generation as interested in golf? Are they,
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be interesting to see. I don't know the answer to that. I know for Gen X, which is, I think you're Gen X.
I don't know what I am.
Yeah, I think you and I are both Gen X. So, I think that we are not golfers. We do golf maybe out of necessity or just because someone invited us, but it's not something that we're passionate about. We have different passions for the way that we spend our time. So they would have to definitely change that, but we're not a big enough generation to fill the gap of all of those baby boomers leaving, right? So I think that over time, the Villages is going to have to evolve into something else, because right now it's great because for the next 15 to 20 years, there's going to be a continuing flow of baby boomers retiring. But I think over time, that is going to dwindle, and then they're going to have to revisit how they even manage that entire project, because it's just going to be too many houses for not enough retirees.
That's interesting.
So, but that is something that we'll have to deal with in the future. For now, I think that the baby boomers is definitely going to be it's a boost to our economy for 2 reasons. One, they're coming here, and 2, a lot of them have legacy pensions. They have additional income that they can spend on restaurants and going out and enjoying themselves and stuff like that. So that, that's why, anywhere around, 55 plus communities is probably going to be doing half decently economically, because those folks have time and they have money to go and spend. And it may not be a lot of money, but they have time and a little bit of money to go and spend at the local shops and the whatever the case may be. So I think there's that. And then on top of that, you have those baby boomers have specific needs as it relates to medical healthcare. So the healthcare industry is starting to grow. We're starting to see a lot more doctors' offices expanding. We're starting to see a lot more hospitals expanding into the area. So I think that the healthcare industry is going to continue to grow to support the baby boomers. Those are all high paying jobs.
They are.
So those folks are going to be able to engage in the local economy. So that'll help support the local economy here. So I think that is going to continue to be the case. And then you have everything that's going on the Space Coast. So the Space Coast has aerospace, which is completely starting to dominate most of the news today, with rocket travel being another arm of like distribution. So now we have planes, trains, automobiles, and rockets.
Pretty
Like,
exciting,
that's
isn't it?
crazy.
Do you think that bleeds over into our area when you think about the Space Coast?
Yeah, because remember, like, even though the Space Coast is pretty far from us, right? There's a couple things that are going to happen. You're going to have all the people who work on the space at the Space Coast. They're not going to live out here.
No.
But you're going to have a lot of industries that are going to want to support. Right? These are advanced manufacturing and even some general manufacturing that are going to support the advanced manufacturing that are probably going to be identified, pretty close, but away from the Space Coast.
Right.
So those people may ultimately be living over here. So like their work is between here and the Space Coast.
It's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
So there's a lot of stuff that's kind of happening that I think will potentially shield Central Florida from, I think some it's who knows where the economy is going to go. But if it goes down, I do think that there is a lot of stuff happening in Central Florida that is going to help shield us from any kind of like negative impacts of the economy, unless, of course, like I said, something catastrophic happens.
I sure hope so. We're opening a Wildwood office, which is
congratulations,
3 blocks from the entrance to Brownwood.
Okay.
In the Villages.
And that's a fast growing location.
That's a fast growing market, and we're excited to be in there.
Okay.
And then we also have an office in Winter Garden.
Now, how do you identify, like, because I mean, obviously you have attorneys that can do a bunch of different things. How do you identify like what attorneys are going to be like leading those offices? Or because I'm assuming that's kind of how you have it. Like there's a
So when you're working on your business instead of in your business, you find the location before you find the lawyers.
Interesting.
Right.
Okay.
So identified a need.
Okay.
For our business, because again, I believe we have something to offer in that market.
Sure.
So I bought the property. The property I went through an exhausting process with the city to get everything in line that I need. And now they're doing my parking lot and we should be open in like 3 months.
Okay.
I do not yet have the lawyer who's going to be manning that office primarily. Funny. Now we will be circulating up there. The lawyers here in Claremont will be circulating up there. But you're right. We will have a lawyer there. But I'm building the business. I'm working on my business. So you find the location, you develop the location, and then you find the people to work it. I mean, what would I do right now with a lawyer who wants to live in Wildwood? Right? Nothing.
Yeah.
Right. I wouldn't want them driving an hour for Claremont all day. Right. So I'll find the right person. We're currently looking for a business development person there.
That's cool.
As well as a lawyer there, as well as reception. We're hiring 4 positions for that office.
Now, how many locations do you have in total?
3. That'll be 3.
Okay.
I used to have an Austin location, but I live here full time now.
Okay. So the location you have is one in Claremont. Where's the other one?
Winter Garden.
Winter Garden. Okay.
And Wildwood is.
And the Wildwood. Okay. That's exciting.
Which services the Villages.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is exciting. But you're right. No, I don't have a lawyer yet, but there will be.
Okay.
There will be a lawyer who will fit our cultural requirements.
Yeah.
The way we look at it in our office is you're expecting. Oh, excuse me, I should have that off. You are expecting everybody. You must be competent in your profession.
Sure.
The litmus test in our office is how do you fit with our culture?
So the default is if the competency is just an expectation.
Exactly. Doesn't matter how good you are, how much money you generate for the firm. If you're not a cultural fit, you have to find a job somewhere else.
I gotcha.
Kind of how it works.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Now, do you? So, I love the fact that you lead with culture. I think that's really important for a business. Do you consider if someone is, let's say, newer and doesn't necessarily have, as you might say, all the chops, but you see that they have they're hungry, is that, and they would be a cultural fit, is that something that you're like, oh, you know what, we're going to go ahead and we'll figure that out? Or do you still need them? Like, how do you look at that?
That's
Because
excellent.
that's a tough, how like trying to figure out like how to hire someone.
Right. So we really hire for what's inside. And what I mean when I say that
Mhm.
is, I can, by this time in my career, I
Mhm.
can fairly quickly judge on a quick meeting how smart a lawyer is and how capable that lawyer is going to be.
Mhm.
And I'm so more interested, not so much in what they know now, but what they're capable of doing and learning, right? That's what excites me. That's where you find opportunities to growth.
Yeah.
And then of course, then the cultural fit is a necessity. Now the cultural fit doesn't necessarily mean they have to be like everybody else.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And no matter what position we're hiring from, that we have that old book, Hire Slow, Fire Fast,
Yeah,
that we
yeah,
all
yeah.
read in the
Yeah.
90s, right? They go, before I meet them, they go through a interview with office people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I meet
It's
them.
like 8 interviews.
Then I
right?
meet them a second time, and then the whole office meets them
Yeah.
at a lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And that does a couple things. It helps the office feel invested in the person,
For sure.
right? So
Mhm.
then they feel like when that person comes, they were a part of making that choice. And so they're already ready to welcome them and love them and encourage them and help them grow.
Yeah.
And it helps the person feel more connected and valued, and it helps the new hire see how important the culture is.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we do it. We're looking for talented people that fit our culture.
Gotcha. That's cool. So, now I know, I've heard, because I don't know, one of the things that you learn and when you go to school to be an attorney, to law school, the biggest thing that I keep hearing is it's not so much what you learn,
Mhm.
it's how you learn to think about things.
Mhm.
And so can you talk a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, that's really a good point. When you go to law school, you don't learn. Here are the 5 elements of evicting someone.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how you learn in law school.
Yeah.
What you learn to do in law school is think about the law
Mm.
in the way that jurisprudence, the way that judges and lawyers before you have thought about the law. You learn how to look at a problem, analyze a problem, not so much how to solve the problem. You learn how to solve the problem in practice.
Okay.
But schooling just really, in fairness, teaches you how to think about the law, how to write about the law, how to communicate about the law, the big concepts. Because the law is broad, like even real estate law, for example, something that is I'm very well versed in. The ocean of what I don't know is humongous.
Yeah.
Right? Because of this little particularity and this little particularity.
Sure.
So what law school teaches you do is how to learn that particularity, how to understand statutes, how to understand how cases should be thought about, and so that you can learn it.
Yeah.
Because it's impossible to know it.
Sure.
So, my sense is, you go to air conditioning school and they teach you this is
The
how
technical.
an air conditioner works.
Yeah.
That is not what law school is. Law school is meant to teach you a couple things. It's meant to be difficult so that people will quit, because being a lawyer is very stressful.
Sure.
And it's mostly stressful because of other lawyers, which is a whole nother conversation.
Interesting.
And so it teaches you how to handle stress, and it teaches you how to think.
Now, how do you feel that's impacted, like, how you look at the world outside of law?
Well, some in bad ways. So people that are close to me in relationships, friends, romantic relationships, and women friends will tell you that sometimes they feel like they're being cross-examined.
That's funny.
And I really have to be careful.
Yeah.
I can be a really bad opponent in an argument, because I will remember every word you said. I will put weight on every word you said, and I will throw it right back in your face.
Interesting.
So, and quite honestly, it has been, I would be honest to say, in my personal life, it's been a detriment.
Interesting.
It has been a detriment in my personal life. It's something I have to get over.
Interesting.
Because you cannot be in relationship with people like they're your client.
Of course, yeah.
Or you got to make.
But that's like a default for you, because you've been training yourself to think like that this whole time. So it's almost like you have to turn it off. I can imagine that can be very difficult.
The other thing that's really been difficult, I don't know if this is interesting to anyone at all, but when you're a lawyer, you see everyone in a crisis. We talked about that earlier, right? You can see a value of helping, but sadly, I see the worst of almost everyone.
Mm.
right? I see the business deals where the partner's lying.
Mm.
You see the divorces where the partner cheated.
Yeah.
You see the business deal that fell apart. You see the real estate deal where they hid a defect. Like you see the kind of the worst of people.
Yeah.
And I think over time, when you experience lawyers as really negative people, that's why. I don't think they started out that way.
They just see so much negativity.
You have to be able to say things about yourself, like, I need to turn my lawyering off when I'm in a personal relationship, or I just might not have that personal relationship anymore. Some lawyers don't learn that, right? Some of the things they teach us to do as lawyers can really not be
interesting.
Good.
So,
and that's why I think a lot of lawyers are so nasty. I will tell you, the worst part of my job is other lawyers.
Interesting.
And it's really sad.
And it sounds like it's because they're jaded from everything that they have to engage with on a regular basis, because typically by the time it gets to you, there's some really difficult, challenging issue that you have to deal with, personality types you got to deal with, some terrible situation that you got to deal with. I could see that.
Yeah. Well, some people are attracted to law just because they're buttholes. I mean, that's just a reality because it's a profession where you can hold yourself out as the person who has all the knowledge. And if you want to be a butthole, that's going to be a very sure, it attracts a certain amount of buttholes. But I think about, like, when I was in law school, most everybody was excited and happy to change. You talk to those very same people now, and I am an anomaly that actually still loves what I do.
Interesting.
Most of them are miserable and hate it. And the reason that they have is because of the negative interactions, this negativity I was talking to you about, that they are unable to process. We are second in alcoholism and drug addiction, right behind doctors.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. Yes. Wow. Okay.
Yes. It's very stressful. Just think about how hard it is. You know what it's like when you're dealing with one of your clients, and maybe they're trying to sell this major asset, and that thing's falling apart, and they're looking at losing their retirement. All that ain't right. Okay, so imagine all of that all of the time.
Yeah.
It's peppered with a bunch of other lawyers who are miserable people.
Well, what's for me as a realtor, like I have an out, right? Because my like pressure gauge is like, oh, this is a bad situation. I need you to talk to my attorney friend. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So now we'll let the attorneys deal with it.
Right. Yeah. So because there's only so much I can do anyways.
Right.
So like you guys don't have that out. Like you are the stopgap. Like
we are the
right. Like it kind of ends with you, and then whatever you say is hopefully to help solve or not solve whatever the challenge is. And then, you have to be either the helper or the bearer of bad news.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes both. Sometimes you try to help and you're not successful, and you have to give them the bad news. Right. Yeah. So think about it. If you were around that every day and didn't have any emotional support to try to develop a richer life than that, then you end up with what we have. What did Shakespeare say? 1,000 lawyers at the bottom of the ocean is a good start, or something like that. And that was a gazillion years ago. Like they hated the lawyers 400 or 500 years ago, right? And that's we have to admit that reputation is well founded.
Oh yeah, I see that. So and you had mentioned, for example, partnerships. What are because I find that you have to be, before you even get an attorney involved, like you have to be super meticulous about who you partner with in your business. Right. And now I'm not talking about hiring. I'm talking about like, hey, we're going to be in a genuine partnership. And, the idea is that everyone kind of gives equally, which that never really happens, but you do the best you can to try to make it as similar as possible. Right.
Right.
In your view, like whenever there is a partnership situation that is, coming to fruition, like as an attorney, like what are some of the things that people need to think about? Because and the reason why I'm asking this question is because I get all the time, I have clients that they want to start a business and they want to bring in, they have this partner that they want to work with, or sometimes it's a family member, which is always a dangerous situation or whatever. So like as an attorney, like what are some of the things that a person who is considering a partner into their business, what are some of the things they should really be thinking about prior to, getting into like formal arrangement of a partnership?
That's such an excellent question. And I've actually thought about that because I've been doing it long enough, 27 years now, that I've been a part of forming relationships and partnerships for clients that worked out.
Yeah.
And I've seen now those that don't. And, quite interestingly, it's very much the same as when you see a young couple going into marriage. So there's a couple of things. You must be, if you cannot communicate with your partner before you're even started in your business, run.
Okay.
If you feel like that person will not listen to you, if you feel like that person, you have to hide your words, be careful, run, because that's only going to get worse. It's kind of like that advice my grandma gave me before I got married. She said, anything you don't like about him now, you're going to hate about him in a couple of years, right? And the problems that you have going into a partnership when everyone is their most excited, right? Pay attention and run. Do not force it. Do not force it. Find another partner for your idea that you can work well together. Because in a closely held partnership, there are times where you are going to be having to work together like you are in a marriage.
Right.
People forget that. This isn't Amazon. You got to be in the trenches with that guy and the gal on the daily.
Yeah.
And if you can't even start out by being able to speak frankly and fairly and honestly about all the challenges, then run. The other thing that I would say is kind of how we say about prenuptial agreements. While you're in love, let's go ahead and please hammer out as many particulars that we can think of. I would say the number one reason that I see partnerships fail is because expectations were not fairly set when they got started. And so you say, Merideth, how do I do that? Go talk to people that do the business that you want to do, right? Find those people. You should have them anyway. People that are not afraid of you as a competitor, that want to mentor you. Keep finding that business until you find it. And then ask those people, what are the things that came up that you didn't think about? What are the dailies that came up that you didn't think about?
Yeah.
Find a partnership with a lawyer who's experienced. Say to the lawyer, here's the things I'm thinking about. What do you see? What has your experience been? And then to the extent you can, address as many hypotheticals. If this happens, what will we do? If this happens, what will we do? If this happens, what will we do? And then we try our best to ink that in an agreements at the beginning. And I find that if the expectations are good, if the chemistry is good, and if the ground rules are set at the beginning when you're, quote, still in love, that is your best chance of success.
Interesting. That's
Those
good. I like that.
I've thought about that because I've seen it happen. I was like, why have some of these people made it and some of these people haven't? Interestingly, I've never been able to have a successful partnership. I have tried on 2 occasions to have partners in my business, and I have been wildly unsuccessful. And I think it's me. I think it's a limitation of me. I think that I very much want to do things as I think they should be done.
I see.
I'm 57, not likely to change a lot.
Okay. Fair.
So, maybe I'm not the best person to ask because I don't think I have been able to successfully do those things that people need to do to make that partnership successful.
Well, I don't know that that's necessarily the right. I don't know if that is true, that you're not the right person to ask, because even though you haven't necessarily been able to find success with
at least I know where I failed.
Well, yes. And you see how others are working and not working. So you can speak to that. So even though it doesn't necessarily work for you, which some people are not good partnership material. Sometimes it's just finding the right person, and you got to identify who that right person is, if that person exists. And then, and that's okay. There's not a wrong, I don't think there's a wrong way.
What I see most honestly, most frequently with partnerships that don't work is there'll be 2 people that like each other and they will be similar minded. Oh, we both love to sell real estate.
Oh, I see.
Let's work together. And they're real excited and then off they go, right? They don't sit down and take the time. Okay, what are our challenges going to be? Let's write that out now. When we have this disagreement, how are we going to handle? Let's write that out now. And so then things go great, but then the first time they hit a bump, expectations have not been set.
Right.
Feelings get hurt, and then what could have otherwise been a very financially profitable, and also emotionally supportive relationship that a business partnership gives you, that person you can have in the trenches with you, that's gone just because you didn't realistically set expectations in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think that's been my failing. And that's where I've seen it fail for others. So that's, if anyone is interested in partnering in a way to leverage themselves, we've talked about leverage.
Yeah. I
think that's the main things you do. Find people who are doing it successfully and ask.
So when because I know there's, I do see sometimes where people want to partner and they're very similar in the way that they operate. So they don't really complement each other, but they're both good doing, let's say, sales as an example. They're really good at sales, and then they feel like they can work together to kind of double up on their ability to sell more, as an example. Is that, I mean, in your experience, have you seen that work? And then what they do is maybe hire the complementary elements that let's say they're not good at administrative. Both of them suck at administrative, to hire the administrative person? Or do you find that it's better to partner with someone who already complements? So you're the big salesperson, and then you have an administrator is the partner. Yeah. Like, have you seen, do you feel like that makes a difference? Or?
Where I see the most success is when people first connect organically, personally, right? And what I mean by that is sometimes you will be attracted to business to someone who is complimentary. Maybe you have great admiration for the fact that they're good on admin and you're not.
Okay.
Sometimes the person that you're going to be attracted to business-wise is because they are like you.
Yeah, parallel, right?
Right. And I think that what you do is just like in a personal relationship, you follow that through, but you have to tend it, and you have to be realistic about what you have.
Gotcha.
So you have two people who are really good at sales. The first thing you need to know is you're not necessarily going to make more money, right?
Yeah,
so a lot of people just assume I'm going to go into this partnership and I'm going to have all this extra volume and I'm going to make all this extra money. That doesn't always work that way.
That's true. Yeah.
Right? So that again goes to that planning thing. What are our reasonable expectations?
Yeah.
And I think that both relationships can work perfectly. The two salespeople who want to get together and hire an admin. Now, here's the problem. Mostly as people that are good at sales, mostly we're big egos. And so sometimes you can have personal problems that develop between two alpha salespeople that, if you had an alpha sales and maybe a beta admin, those problems wouldn't have happened.
Right.
But I think the secret is not trying to choose, like, I'm a salesperson, so to be successful, I need to choose an admin. I think the be successful is see where your heart is pulling, where that affinity is going, and then work with that.
So you're really talking about this, like, literally from a relationship perspective, where, like, hey, first, let's see if we enjoy each other's company. Let's start there. And then, beyond joining each other's company, can we work together? And then beyond, can we work together? Could this be a good partnership? And what would need to happen in order for this to be a good partnership? And then once you kind of get there, then start talking about, okay, what would all of the different potential, negative elements look like? How do we navigate through that? And then if it doesn't work out, how do we exit this whole thing?
Perfect. That's you explained that so much better than I did. That's exactly right. And that's really the order that it needs to go in.
That's interesting. I mean, what's cool about that is that is sort of, because, partnerships a lot of times are, they can be very emotional, and then they can also be very technical. But what you're talking about is, and when you say organic, it sounds to me like it is a little bit of both. Like, you kind of have to have that emotional, like, hey, do we have chemistry to work together? And there's a technical side that we have to logistically work out in order to ensure that this can actually function long term.
Exactly.
Which is interesting, which is really cool. I mean, I always like to have these conversations because it helps me to kind of break down, like, things that I have ideas about, but I don't necessarily have clarity on. So that provided a lot of clarity. So
well, and what's sad to me as the lawyer is I see so many people come in my office and they want to try to start asking the questions that they don't even know what questions to ask. Because if I say, okay, are you going to evaluate your company on book value or fair market value? And they are like, what are you talking about?
Right.
That's the kind of stuff you talk to a lawyer about. So many times, though, they haven't done the earlier basic work are you guys going to work together?
Right.
Well,
they're jumping the gun.
are you really going to make more money?
Yeah.
Or have some other benefit? Is it really going to give you more time or whatever
Yeah.
benefit you think it's going to be? And I see most often people get an idea and they go off and running.
Yeah.
And
sometimes
it works.
Yeah, right.
Not gonna lie, sometimes it works.
Yeah.
But most times it doesn't, because
Gotcha.
then when you've made decisions that are purely emotional,
Yeah.
when you hit that wall, you don't have a solution.
Right.
But you do need that emotional connection. I mean, this is a small business.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair to say. Yeah,
I mean, we have to all of our tough men out there have to admit that you have to connect with your business partner.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Well, I want to be super respectful of your time. I know that we've been here for a minute.
It's been so fun.
Yeah. So if someone is interested in, or if they have any questions about law, about anything at all, because I know that you're very knowledgeable and you have a team that's also very knowledgeable, so that you have extensive a sense of knowledge from you and your team. How can someone reach you? What is the best way to reach you?
So first of all realtors have my cell phone. Whether I work with you or not, whether I've ever done a closing with you or not, I give out my cell phone number for free for them to call me and ask questions. Do not give it to your customers. I will find you and beat you up with my high heel. But I can be reached on my cell at 352-217-7009.
Okay.
For all legal inquiries, for all of our offices, for all of our areas, we can be found at mnagellaw.com, MNAGELLAW.com, or 352-394-7408.
And that's the office line.
That's the office line.
Okay. And I can attest that if you actually, like, as a realtor, like she said, don't give it to your client, but as a realtor, if you have a question and you need help with something, she does actually answer her phone, or will respond to you via text if she doesn't answer. So she will answer.
And I will answer you even if I have nothing to do with the transaction. I really want realtors to succeed. My mother was a realtor. I've got dirt in my blood.
Nice.
And I really want people to do well. I think that real estate is one of the most important professions that we have. And I just want to help people do well.
Thank you so much.
Especially my lady realtors. Sorry, guys.
All right. Well, this has been Merideth Nagel with the Legacy Legal Team. My name is Gus. This has been the Ortiz Anomaly podcast. I appreciate your time. If you like what you're seeing, please make sure you like and share. Comment any questions that you may have, either for me or for Merideth, and we're happy to get an answer for you. So thank you for your time, and I will see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
Peace. All right.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.